Hi, idols. I'm so glad to have you here with me. I'm Dr. Robin Sargent, owner of Idol Courses, and I help people become idols, and I also build transcendent courses. So I also have the podcast, Become an Idol, where you can learn more specific topical things about becoming an instructional designer. So today, I actually wanted to talk to you and dive in about the 5 things that you need to get and land your first instructional design job. And I chose this topic because many of you who are with me, um, you know, there are so many things that you feel like you need to do or to gather or to be to become an instructional designer and online learning developer. And it's hard to know which of those things to prioritize. And so I really just want to come on and tell you what those things are to prioritize, so that you know and have kind of a roadmap going forward on what you need to focus on. So this is, I just kind of want to tell you something that might relate to you, and it's a story about my first time trying to become an instructional designer, online learning developer. I was an assistant dean at Shorter University, and while you think that might be a way into corporate instructional design, it is not. I did several things. I asked my boss, who's the dean, I said, oh, can I change my job title on my resume to online academic manager? Because, I was like working the learning management system. I created a full CV that was 10 pages long. I created an online portfolio that was like screenshots of the learning management system that I built out. There wasn't a clear roadmap. And so I just kind of followed what everybody said about career changing and branding yourself online. And this was back in, 2011. And so I just did all these different things. I started a blog. I, changed up my LinkedIn profile. I changed my name, my title on my resume. I the portfolio. Like, there's just so many things that I continued to do. I even created a SlideShare account and uploaded all my PowerPoints. I created a Scoopit account to, like, I don't even know if you guys know what Scoopit is anymore. It's probably still around, but who uses it? And then I linked everything together to try and get, like, when you searched my name, you saw instructional designer next to it. And when I finally got my interview, he actually told me, he said, I almost didn't bring you in because your resume was 10 pages long. So it's just an example of, like, you just think that there's so many things that you have to do to land your first job, and then you find out, well, maybe I did it wrong, right? And that's kind of maybe some of the fears that you have too, is like, maybe it's just something I did wrong all the way along the way when I did all these things to try and land my first instructional design job. So let's get into the things that you actually need to land a corporate instructional design job. The first thing is you need job application assets. So many times when you apply for a job, you can just send your resume and maybe a cover letter, but not for instructional design. For instructional design, you need an online portfolio. If you guys have been with me for a while, you've probably heard me say this before, and you've heard all your peers say it. And I really just want to encourage you to start your portfolio now. It's not scary. There are so many free web builders out there. Even if you're tech shy, there's drag and drop Wix and Weebly. And if you want something a little fancier, you can go for the Squarespace. Really, just start a portfolio and start putting all your practice up on that portfolio, because as you go through your career, when you land that first job, your portfolio will grow with you. It'll only get better. So don't be intimidated by people who've been an idol for a while. Excuse me, where'd that come from? An idol for a while, and then they have these fancy portfolios. You just need something so that a hiring manager can see your thought process. So make sure you write some text about your portfolio artifacts. They want to see how you think through creating courses. They want to see the proof. The next thing that you need is a resume, but not just any old resume, not just like listing out all your experiences that don't matter to the instructional design job that you want. You need a resume that is tailored for instructional design. And you say to me, oh, but I don't have any experience in instructional design. How do I tailor it? You tailor your resume by putting skills first, transferable skills. And when you list your skills first, make sure that they are transferable skills. So if you are a secondary teacher and you wrote lesson plans, instead you instructionally designed classroom curriculum, right? Or curriculum development, professional development creator, right? If you've ever taught other teachers or something to that effect, those are the skills that you list at the top. And then if there's any way that you can kind of reformat the titles that you have, or like I did, like, hey boss, can I change my title? Then do it. I'm not saying to lie or be unethical, but because whenever your resume goes into an applicant tracking system, they're just looking for keywords. And a lot of times you won't even get a shot at an interview, or somebody won't even look at your resume unless you have some of those keywords. So definitely keyword load at the top with your skills, and include the instructional design terms. If you can't do it as your title, do it in the body of that experience section, where you talk specifically about those experiences that you've had, creating curriculum, creating animations, creating instructor-led training, maybe you created PowerPoints. These kinds of things should be under your experience, your achievements in instructional design. Even if you were a teacher or a professor or whatever it is, talk about how it relates to the position that you want. And in saying that, a cover letter can cover a lot of flaws in your resume. Because if you can use your cover letter, which is another one of those job assets that you need, if you can use your cover letter to explain why you are in this career and how you're now in another career, well, then boom, there you go. Like that's how you're going to create a cover letter that's going to convince a hiring manager that you can solve their problems, right? You got to think about your audience that you're writing your cover letter to. And they want to hire somebody that, one, they see that you can do the work because they're going to look at your portfolio. Two, they see your resume and they're like, oh, okay, she don't really have experience in instructional design, but oh, I see this cover letter and she talks about how it really does translate, how she really does know my business, and she can, I keep saying she, but whatever, and she can or he can translate those skills to help me solve a problem with my business and fill this role as an idol. Hey all, how many of you that are with me are already instructional designers? If you are, press yes. If you are not yet an idol, go ahead and press no. Either way, I'm happy to have you. And then the next thing that you'll need is a LinkedIn profile. It really is essential in the job market today. Well, for several reasons. One, because hiring managers are going to go and look at your LinkedIn profile. And so you'll want your LinkedIn profile to be similar to your new resume, but go ahead and inject more keywords for instructional design, curriculum development, e-learning, online learning, these kinds of things into your LinkedIn profile. Because one, it'll be good for the hiring manager to see. And two, you can connect with other instructional designers because networking is where it's at in finding a new job. And also recruiters will be able to find you. And a lot of instructional designers find their first job through recruiters. All right, let's get to number 2. Of course, ask away any questions that you have about any of these things I talk about in these 5 things that you need. Number 2 is you need some skills. And one of the first skills that I'm going to mention might be controversial, but I don't think so. You have to know how to use some kind of e-learning authoring tool. Some people say, oh, well, you know, those 2 things are separated. But if you look at the job market out there, even if you want to just write instructional design content and hand it over to a developer, you're not going to give yourself the most amount of opportunities to land your first job. And so you'll want to learn some kind of e-learning authoring tool. I recommend Articulate Storyline. It's the number one that people are using. It's easy to learn. It's like PowerPoint on crack. So learn Articulate Storyline. You can get like a 60-day trial on that thing. So that's where you should focus. And there are several ways to learn Articulate Storyline. There's tutorials on YouTube. They have lots of guides on Articulate. There's a huge community. But I will give you one tip. Before you download Articulate Storyline and start teaching yourself and loading up assets to your portfolio, write a course script first so that you have some content that you can build out in your e-learning authoring tool as you're learning the program. That way, you're building your portfolio and you're learning Articulate Storyline skills at the same time. The other skill that you need is communication. And I mean, you need communication in written, verbal, and visual. And you don't have to be a graphic designer to be able to communicate things visually, but you have to understand the basics of where the eye looks. For instance, if something on the screen is larger than the other elements that are on that page or on that screen, then that is seen as something that has more importance. And so it's those kinds of principles that you need to understand to communicate your message. So think about that skill, enhance that skill, learn more ways to be more clear in the way that you communicate in a written format, in a visual format, and in a verbal format. Because even if you're not going to stand up and train, right, because instructional designers are usually behind the scenes, a lot of times they combine them, the trainer / instructional designer, you're going to need to be able to speak well for yourself so that you can land that interview. You can nail it and be like, oh, they know what they're talking about and they can communicate it clearly, right? Because if you can communicate it clearly verbally, then you can probably write it clearly for your learners. The other thing that you should know as a skill is the backward design model. Really, there are several different models that you could use for instructional design, but if you know how to look at the end goal of a course and work backwards from there to determine what are the exact steps that someone needs to take to reach that goal, whether it's a hard skill or a soft skill, if you can work backwards to reach that outcome, then you're golden. Because that is the number one skill that you have to have in instructional design as far as creating courses. It's the best way to think about it. The next skill, project management. I know, not everybody has to be a project manager for the course design or keep track of the timeline, but really you do. You got to keep track of your own timeline. You have to be able to know how to order your steps and get feedback from your stakeholders, contact your subject matter experts, and turn things around on time. So you got to follow through with each piece of the project. And basically it's just saying be organized and follow through. So a lot of project management, especially for an individual contributor in an instructional design role, is being able to self-manage, right? And then the last thing about skills I think is really important for you is to be a team player. A lot of times we get into instructional design because we just kind of want to sit in our, well, this is what I think anyway, we want to sit in our little area and we just want to create and develop and just do our own thing and work behind the scenes, and it's really fun to do it that way. But anytime you're in any kind of instructional design role, especially in a corporate setting, you're gonna have to be a team player. You'll have a manager, a director, you'll have stakeholders you have to interact with, subject matter experts. People will be giving you feedback on your hard work, and some of it might not be the nice feedback that you were hoping after you spend all that time on it. But if you're a team player, you think this is not about me, this is about doing it for the team and doing it for the goals. And so those are the number one skills: e-learning, communication, backward design model, project management, self-management, and team players. Do you guys agree that those are the number one skills you need? You can give me a yes if you like in the comments, or tell me what skills that you think that we need. And the third thing you need is experience. I know it's a bummer because you think, well, how am I going to get experience in instructional design if I don't have any experience in instructional design, so I can't get a job to get experience? I know it's like a paradigm, a paradox, if you will. And so there are some ways around this, right? Find a mentor, find somebody who is a freelancer in instructional design, and take little pieces of their project. Now, you won't get necessarily a full experience of, analysis all the way to evaluation whenever you get experience this way. If you take on like pieces of an instructional design job from like a freelancer or something like that, or a mentor, but all those pieces make a whole, and you will get practice in a component of instructional design. And if you do that well, they'll trust you to give you more experience, and that counts. And it's also the experience of practice. So practicing your skills of e-learning development, practicing your skills of instructional design by writing those scripts and writing those courses and writing those storyboards. That experience counts. And if there's any way that you're already on the job, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're a professor, maybe you're already in a corporate setting, and there are places where there are already instructional designers or education technologists, or they want somebody to come and do a training for the employees. Volunteer. That counts, and you can add that to your resume. If you are in, say, for instance, you're in a corporate job and you're a bank teller. Okay, you're a bank teller. And you decide to go and say volunteer for some training experiences. You can now put, say you're a bank teller for Wells Fargo, you're now bank teller and trainer. You see what I'm saying? You can get experience. You just kind of really need to want it. So those are just some of the experience tips off the top of my head. But there are ways to get it, and you don't have to do it for free all the time. But if you're already in a job and you can go and get experience while you're being paid, then you're winning. And if you're a teacher, offer to train and create a presentation or instructor-led training or whatever for your teachers on some kind of professional development. Maybe it's on online learning for the classroom. See, you can think through this. You can get experience. The fourth thing that I want to tell you is you need a passion for learning. I know this probably seems like obvious. Is this obvious that you need a passion for learning? Maybe it's obvious, but I wanted to say it anyway, because when you're an instructional designer, you have to learn new things, and you have to be a learner, put yourself in the learner's shoes, and then you have to continue to learn new things. That's what's really fun about it. So if you don't like learning and you think reading all the time and learning new things all the time is kind of a drag, and I mean in like a formal way, if you think that that process is a drag, then forget instructional design, because you're going to have to do it all the time. But for a lot of us, that's what we love about instructional design, is because even in my career, I got to learn everything from API and XML, which, what is that, for digital marketing and software training, all the way to soft skills of how to do business to business sales training. So there are fiber. There was one time I created a course on how to do fiber installations. Like, I am not an engineer. I don't think like that, but you need to learn and think like your learners, and you have to learn from the SME and put it all together. So a passion for learning is key. It's no brainer. If like that's not for you, then maybe you should just stick to some kind of development only role and just go towards e-learning development if you are still interested in this field. And the fifth and final thing that I think that you need to land your instructional design job in a corporate setting is focus. It's commitment to get that job, to see yourself there, to have the confidence and the focus to go after it. And I mean it. Don't give up. Don't feel like, oh, building these things is too much for me, because once you do it, just one piece at a time, you will realize that it was worth it. I know for me that I actually went from a $30,000 job in higher education, and immediately when I got my very first instructional design corporate job, I started at $65,000. Can you understand that that is a 2 times my income? I was doing exactly what I love. And now, I mean, there's so many paths you can follow in instructional design. So it is worth it. It is worth it in the fact that you will love your job. It is worth it in the fact that of monetarily speaking, and it is worth it in the fact that like it can fulfill your soul. You are like helping people. You are solving problems. You are being creative. So keep the commitment, keep the focus. And if you want to hear more about these tips and read more in depth about I've created a guide for you, and you can click on the link there and go get my guide. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask me before I let you go? Or I'm so glad that you guys are here, and I hope this was helpful for you. Thanks, Mel. I appreciate. Okay, I didn't mention formal training. No, heck no. I love this question, because I will tell you that everybody goes through the path to become an instructional designer, especially in the corporate world, different routes. And I think that the only minimum training that you really need is just a bachelor's, and it doesn't matter what your bachelor's is in. If you have that portfolio and you can have transferable skills highlighted, then, and all these other things that I mentioned, then you absolutely can land an instructional design job. There are many people that just make the switch in their own company. That bank teller example I gave, that is a real example. That is from somebody that I really actually know. They were a bank teller, and then they said, oh, I really like this training role. And they said, well, you should apply to do it. And she said, oh, I've never been a trainer before. And they said, well, come back to us with a presentation for, bank tellers or whatever, and give it to us. She came back, had a presentation, delivered it, and they gave her the job, and she like tripled her income. And so it is a real thing. I didn't even get my degree in instructional design. I have a PhD in instructional design and online learning. I didn't get that until after I was already a director of learning and development. So if that helps to answer your question, that really is the truth. And you can see many, 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 many more examples. Just even our Become an Idol Facebook group, there's many stories like that. So thank you for your question. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm going to do this every Thursday, even though it makes my hands sweat. But if there's anything that you want to know specifically, or you want me to dive more into, or whatever, I got a list of topics, but I'd love to hear from you. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you guys next Thursday.